Hi and welcome to your practicum. So to prepare myself, I've washed my hands, I've got my apron on, and I've sprayed my surface with a spray and a dishcloth. If you have long hair, make sure that's tied back. So to begin with, you will prepare all of your ingredients and equipment. So what we need is a baking tray with greaseproof paper. We need a tablespoon. We need a measuring jug. This has already got the 250 ml of water in it, which I'll come to later. I have some oil and a brush. This will be situated around the classroom. Please keep these in the stations that they're on and don't take your food to them, just because we need to share these amongst the class. I also have my mixing bowl. I have a knife and I have some scissors. In terms of my ingredients, I will need some oil, I will need some bread flour, I have sugar, I have salt, yeast, raisins, and I also have my flour dredger. The raisins are for the Hedgehog Bread only. If you're watching this video for pizza, you will omit these. Okay, so before you begin, as always, you need to make sure you have a nice organised workspace and spend a few minutes to collect your equipment and your ingredients. For your bread practical, you will need a baking tray and lined with greaseproof paper. You will need a measuring jug. You'll need a mixing bowl, a tablespoon, and a knife. You'll also need a flour dredger. In terms of ingredients, you will need some bread flour, sugar, salt, yeast, and oil. Step one of this recipe is to preheat your oven. So in the food room, we have got two different ovens and they are both depicted slightly differently. So here, this one, we are looking for the oven which is shaded grey because we're working on the bottom oven, the main oven. And to turn that on, we push in the dial, turn round to gas mark 7, and we press the ignition here. Again, hold this for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, release. And just have a little look in the oven just to check that the blue flame is ignited. On this oven, it is depicted rather than with an image, it simply says main oven. And the process is the same. Press in the dial, turn anti-clockwise, and hold in the ignition for 3 seconds. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is weigh out all of your dry ingredients. So when we're using the scales, it's very important that we are using the correct unit of measurements. So you want to pop your bowl on there first, and then always make sure that the dial goes back down to 0, like so, and make sure that the unit reads grams. You are then weighing out your bread flour, to your flour, you will then add 1 teaspoon of yeast, make sure it's level, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and half a teaspoon of salt. Like so. Give it a little mix to combine them together, and we'll then add our wet ingredients. So to your dry ingredients, you need to add 1 tablespoon of oil, like so. And then you want to add your warm water gradually. It's very important that this is gradual, because if you add too much water too early, it can become like a bit like a porridge, and if it's too dry, it's very difficult to add the water to afterwards. So you want the dough to be a little bit stickier or a little bit wetter rather than being too dry and stiff too early on. So if you pour this in gradually, swap hands, and you can use a knife to combine it together. As the dough starts coming together, you'll see it forming little rags like this. Make sure you're scraping the knife all around the side of the bowl so that you are using the correct quantities. A bread dough should be nice and soft, and as I said, on the sticky side. That's one drop more. If you feel like you don't want to continue to pour it in, what you can do is use a spoon just to add a little bit more. It's better at this stage to do it that way rather than free pouring. Once it's looking like this, you can start to get your hands in there and use the dough to clean around the outside of the bowl. And as you can see, nice and sticky. Like so. It's a good idea at this stage to fill your bowl with warm soapy water. It makes it easier to clean at the end of the lesson once the bread goes in the oven. So allowing it to soak. Like so. Okay, so before you turn the dough out onto the work surface, it's really important that you either flour it or oil it. Now the flour I'm going to use for this one because my dough is slightly sticky, but if you have a drier dough, it would be a good idea to add just a little splash of oil to the work surface, and that prevents it from sticking to the area. Nice and sticky. So what we're going to do now is we're going to knead our dough. So to knead the dough, first of all, you need to get it off your hands. And there are lots of different ways in which you can knead it, but the main thing is, what you will see me do now, is I like to bring the top of the dough towards myself, and with the heel of my hand there, push it away. So watch that again. I turn the dough 90 degrees, bring the top to the base and push it away with the heel of my hand, like so. And you will just have to gauge this. Like you can see now, it's still sticking, so I do need to keep adding flour. Try not to, it's very important to keep the quantities accurate. If you start adding too much flour, it can make the dough at this stage go a little bit harder, and that will make it more difficult to roll out and or shape, and also affect the overall texture. So as you can see here, I am just keeping the dough moving constantly, adding a little flour when needed and kneading it. You want to knead the dough for around and about 5 to 10 minutes. And you are looking for the surface of the dough to become, look closely, nice and smooth. For hedgehog bread, once you have your dough, you are going to divide it into 4 equal portions. I'm working with half the recipe here, so I'm just going to divide mine into 2. So using a knife, you're just going to get into 2 equal portions. This will help it cook a similar time in the oven and also look like a batch, so they should all look quite similar. Now once you have your portion, you want to give it an extra little knead to make sure it's nice and smooth. So stretch and pull back, stretch and pull back, like so. And you are looking for it to be a bit of an ovally shape, like so. You're then going to pinch his nose, a little bit sticky, a bit of flour on there. Pinch his nose and pinch his bum, like this. And then you are going to take some raisins and some scissors, and you want to chop the raisins into half, and you will put one on either side of his nose to create his eyes. We're then going to brush him with oil like so. This will help him to go golden in the oven. And with your scissors, you are going to create the spikes. So snipping the dough all the way around, like so, to make your cute little hedgehog bread. And you will repeat this with all 4 sections of your dough, trying to make them all look quite similar. Once you have done this, you will place them onto the baking tray. Look at your greased baking tray. Stop it from sticking. And make sure when you are putting additional ones on, you leave enough space between them so they have space to rise in the oven. So I've just done 2, you guys will have 4. Remember to keep them separate, and then they're ready to go into the oven. So you want to have the tray in a horizontal position. If it goes in like this, there will not be enough space to close the door. So go over to the oven, crouch down to oven level, open the door gently, and hot air rises, so if the top shelf is free, make sure it goes on there. Close the door gently. Again, just check that the flame is still burning blue, and then they go into the oven for 20 minutes, at which time you have now got time to clean your work surface and do your washing up. See you soon. So 20 minutes have now passed, my work surface is nice and clear, and I have done all of my washing up. So now my food is ready to take out of the oven. So I'm going to crouch down again, open the door gently, and I'm going to take out my hedgehog breads and pop it onto the tray to cool. You know that bread is done when it sounds hollow, so I'm going to pick them up. They might be a bit hot, and beautiful. So that's my little Mrs. Hedgehog. Here's one I made earlier, kids.